Welcome to the Source of Commercial Real Estate, where we discuss all things non-residential commercial real estate, including finding and funding deals, market intel, finding a competitive advantage, and using real estate to live the life that you want. I am your host, Jonathan Hayek, and today I am talking with Jake Bisenius. Jake is the Chief Investment Officer and President of AmCap, a premier vertically integrated real estate private equity firm. Jake joined AmCap in 2005 to lead acquisitions and grow the firm. As president, Jake heads the company's day-to-day activities and is a member of the firm's investment committee. In his tenure, he's been responsible for growing the firm to over $1 billion in assets under management. He has partnered with U.S. government pensions, Ivy League university endowments, and leading institutional investors to acquire 23 properties, representing over 4.4 million square feet of leasable retail space across 24 states. Jake has been investing in the commercial real estate sector since 1999, and he has handled more than $2 billion worth of real estate transactions. Jake, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm awesome. I'm actually in my Denver office today. So
awesome. I'm not too far away. I'm currently in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So nice. Just up I-25 from you.
Yeah, we have a shopping center near there in Fort Collins. So
okay, nice. So, Jake, why don't we start out with you telling us about your background and what your work in real estate looks like today?
Sure. My background, I started out as a mechanical engineer out of undergrad, and I got into commercial HVAC sales. So I was selling all commercial air conditioning equipment and lighting and controls for big buildings to developers. And then I realized that I could do what they were doing, so I went back to business school and decided I wanted to be a developer. And then when I was in business school, my friend says, you don't want to be a developer, you want to hire developers, you want to do real estate private equity. So that's what I did. I ended up working at Vornado, which is a big REIT out of New York City, on the skyscrapers and throughout the East Coast. And then 18 years ago, I came to AmCap. My partner, I went to Harvard Business School. My partner went to Harvard Business School. He's a 1972 grad. I'm a 2002 grad. We did the secret handshake, and then he hired me. So there is no secret handshake, but I had a vision for the firm. They were a really good investor. Really, did well with their investors' money, but they just needed more of an institutional feel. So they needed reporting and compliance and processes and things like that to be put in place and documented. And once we were able to do that, then we were able to attract institutional capital. And so that, started with, one large state pension fund that invested about $500 million of debt and equity with us to start. And then we stopped actually investing in 2006 and didn't start again until 2010. So we just couldn't make sense of the pricing in 2006. And, then things started getting shaky in 2007. And then the global financial crisis happened in 2008. So started finding deals in 2009 and started closing deals in 2010. So, and so that worked out well for us.
Yeah, I would say so. I want to talk a little bit about that. Was that, sure. I mean, we hear stories about people in the great financial crisis just, losing everything because, things in 06 and 07 were heating up and things were going crazy. But you were fairly new to AmCap at that point. Yeah. You arrived in 2005. And then in 06, 07, you say, whoa, we're not doing deals anymore. I mean, in hindsight, you look like a genius. But at the time, how was that going over with investors and employees and your partner?
So the firm had a kind of, they were used to kind of hitting home runs. And so it wasn't that hard with the firm itself because they wanted to only do like really juicy deals. And there wasn't that many at the time because things were getting pretty tight price wise. But it was kind of funny because so we have what's called the AmCap Employee Fund. And so everybody all the way down to the secretaries has the ability to invest in deals across the board. So we've had secretaries where we had exits from deals where they paid off their mortgages or put their kids through college. So I was getting more heat from the admin than our investors because they were like, "Come on, let's go do some deals, Jake. Let's go out there and get some stuff done." Like in 2008, and I'm like, "Well, we're kind of trying to read the tea leaves here, and there's a lot of, hubbub of like a big financial wave coming." And so, and we were kind of connected with. We had a partner on a deal where they own the dirt and we own the prop building above it. It was this guy that been an investor for a long time. He's probably 80 years old. This is back at that time, and he just had a lot of experience. And he's just like he was very connected. And he's like, "There's a big financial tsunami coming, so watch yourself." This is beginning of 2008, so that helped keep our convictions aligned. And then lo and behold, things started getting really shaky in the summer, and then you had Lehman.
So what I want my next question to be is what similarities you see from that point to now. But before we get there, I want to make sure the listeners understand exactly who AmCap is,
Sure.
and what you all do. So can you talk about what your buy box is and what your
Yep.
portfolio looks like? What sort of stuff do you own, and what are you looking for?
So we're an owner operator. We specialize in grocery anchored shopping centers throughout the U.S. We tend to invest in wealthy suburbs of kind of top 50 metros that are growing with good college educated populations, good demos, density. So in what we do, you want to have what's called, you want location. You've heard location, location, location when it comes to real estate. Well, in our type of real estate, it's location, access, and visibility. So you want to have good demographics. You want to have at least 80,000 people in 3 miles making 80,000 average household income. You want to have at least 30,000 vehicles per day going past your center, and you want to be visible to the road. You want your center to be parallel to the road so that as you're driving by, you can see every single shop as you're driving past. You don't want it way up on a hill. You don't want it way down in a valley. And that's why you got to look at real estate, because I've seen things that look great on site plans, and then you go and actually look at the real estate. And there's one shopping center I looked at in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is a small market, but it had a super Walmart next to it, and it looked, oh, this is going to be great. Super Walmart's going to bring all these customers to the center. Well, you go to two of the shopping center, the Walmart's way down in a valley, and the rest of the shopping center is way up on the hill. So people just go straight to the Walmart and leave, and they never interacted with the rest of the shopping center. So provided no benefit to the inline tenants. So what you want to have is the anchor drives all the kind of the traffic at your shopping center. So you want to have that top grocer bringing people to your shopping center, going past your other tenants' doors every day. So, and that's kind of the secret.
And so,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. So you talked about what you're looking for. Are those deal breakers? So that Walmart you saw that's kind of down in the valley, people come to the valley, and maybe there's out parcels, maybe there's Dollar Generals and haircut place and discount fashion places. Is there any cap rate that, or any discount that would compensate for, well, the location isn't perfect, but we're getting a great deal on it? Or is it just a total deal breaker?
If the sales aren't there, the tenants can't afford to pay the rent. So it's a pretty simple business that we're in. The sales dictate what kind of rent they can afford to pay, and it's based on their type of business. So in what we do, there's a thing called a health ratio. So it's basically what percentage of sales they can afford to pay in rent. So a grocery store can pay about 5 to 8% of its sales in rent. So if a grocery store is doing $500 per square foot a year in sales, that means it can pay between $25 and $40 a square foot a year in occupancy cost. A pizza shop can do about 20% of its sales in occupancy cost. So if you have a pizza shop doing $500 a foot, it could pay up to $100, up to $100 a foot in occupancy costs. So there's just different, jewelry stores have even higher margins, so they could pay about 30 or 40% occupancy costs. So it depends on the business model of the things. Eyeglass stores have high margins, mattress stores have high margins, so those guys can all afford to pay higher rents.
And do you have,
and grocery stores? Yep.
Do you have like a secret black book or a binder that says, the type of tenant and what kind of ballpark margins they've got and what kind of price per square foot they should be able to pay? Or because you're rattling this stuff off the top of your head. I mean, that knowledge is gold to someone looking at this stuff. But how does someone get that information?
So there used to be a book a decade ago called The Dollars and Cents of Shopping Centers, and that had a lot of these ratios in there. So that was kind of where we got some of it. And then just, I guess, 44 years in the same industry, you kind of start to figure things out. I mean, my partner could figure out, like, sales just by the number of bags of flour a pizza shop had purchased, so they could like audit their books to see if they were actually reporting their sales. Because we have things called percentage rent, where they have to pay either the greater of their base rent or a percentage of their sales. And so if their sales are really high, then they've got to pay percentage rent. So he could audit some of these tenants to find out if they're actually reporting correctly, just based on bags of flowers that they would sell.
Is it mandatory in your leases when you sign a new lease with a tenant that you have that they have to report sales to you?
We try to get it. We buy a lot of existing shopping centers, so it's not always in the existing leases. But the other thing now with data, you can triangulate kind of where their sales are probably at, because with their services like Placer AI that tracks the number of visits to your shopping center. And one of the things that we've seen actually is the foot traffic at our shopping centers is higher than pre-COVID, because everybody's kind of moved to suburbia and they're working from home a couple days a week. So they're puttering around their neighborhood shopping centers more often than they did in the past. Rather than going downtown and eating, they're coming to our Chipotle or Chick-fil-A or McDonald's and eating at our shopping center during the week.
So, Jake, can you describe when you're looking at a new center? I want to talk about leases. Describe your ideal lease scenario. Are you looking for expiring leases to try to buy at a discount? Are you looking for long-term stabilized leases? What's your ideal scenario there?
It really depends on the appetite of our joint venture partner. So sometimes we work with some state pension funds that want more core assets. So they want long lease terms. They just want to know everything's locked in place for forever, and high credit tenants, and it's just going to be what it's going to be for the next 10 plus years. With other tenants, they want more of a value add type of approach. So we'll buy things with a shorter lease term, with vacancy, and we'll lease it up. Lately, our theme has been looking at replacement costs. So we're buying shopping centers. The last 3 centers we bought were around $160 a square foot, and the replacement cost is around $350 a square foot for these same shopping centers. So we have well below market rents. That if we ever lost a tenant, it would be a good news thing rather than a bad news thing, because you charge double the rent. Example of that is we had a Kmart that we bought on purpose in Chicago, paying like $7 gross rent, and we replaced it with an Amazon Fresh grocery store, a Ross, and a Bob's Discount, paying $21 in that same, so triple the rent and 1,000 times better credit than the Kmart. So those are just some of the types of things that we kind of look for when we buy assets. But the biggest thing we like to look for is just strong sales from the grocer. That's kind of the paramount, because that means that there's people coming to the center. And in what we do, it's kind of winner takes all. So the best shopping centers attract the best tenants. Everybody wants to be at that shopping center. And there's only a limited number of hard corners that have that traffic and have that, like here in Denver, we own a lot of King Soopers, and they do double the sales that the Safeway does. So that means if you're a tenant in our shopping center, like a dentist or a wine store, you have twice as many people walking past your door every week. So you have, in theory, the ability to get twice as much sales every week versus if you were across the street. So.
And is that the reputation of the brand? Is that the location that King Soopers chooses? How do you why is King Soopers doing twice the revenue that Safeway is?
Just a better operator, better grocer. They're just, each market has like its top grocer. Texas has HEB, Florida has Publix. Just various markets have that top mainline grocer that people. You probably have Smith's up in Cheyenne, maybe.
We also have King Soopers here.
Yeah, yeah,
and that's where I shop.
But they're both Kroger brands, so
right.
They're both owned by the same parent. But yeah, so those each area's got its grocery that's beloved by the people, and it's where people want to shop.
So I want to talk about value add a little bit. I'm primarily a value add investor, and I think most of my listeners are. So looking for ways to add value to, say, a grocery anchored center or a Class A center that you all are buying. What are some of the top ways that you all add value so that you're continuing to increase your income?
So typically we'll look for stuff with a empty box that's in it. So you have that top grocer, but then you may have a junior box that blew out. and we'll subdivide that space and make it smaller and charge higher rents. Or we'll go to the city and we'll go get a variance. We've done this time and time again. Even here in Denver, we owned a shopping center called Clayton Lane, which was a Whole Foods in Cherry Creek. And we were able to change the zoning from 3-to-1 FAR to 9-to-1 FAR in a market where they're selling FAR for about $100 a square foot. So we created, in theory, $80 million of value. We sold it for a $50 million profit. But towns want more revenue, so they want more density. So in the past, they used to have these what's called parking ratios, where you'd have to have 6 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet of gross leasable area that you had, or square footage of shopping center. And now with Uber and ride sharing and eventually driverless cars and people like taking electric bikes and everything else, you don't need that parking ratio. You don't need that you don't need this massive field of parking. And so we're able to go to towns and convince them to let us lower our parking ratios and create additional square footage on our parking lots, and pop in a Chick-fil-A, put in an urgent care clinic out in the pad, up front, create additional square footage on the side, expand some of our centers. The various tenants have different footprints they want to do at various times. Like 5 years ago, Target wanted to get smaller. Now they want to get bigger. So they're going from 120,000 feet to 150,000 feet because they're using their stores as a distribution and return hub. So you go to a Walmart now, they have 50 pickup spots outside of it. So it's like a sea of people bringing you stuff to your car. And everybody's kind of going towards that direction. You've seen, which makes our real estate more valuable. What we've seen is like even Whole Foods added $10 delivery charges. So they're trying to drive you to the shopping center. I mean, if you try to return something on Amazon, if you do it from your house, they charge you. If you drop it off at the UPS store or Kohl's or Whole Foods, then it's free. So that's the trend. They can't make money delivering to your house. That's just what they kind of figured out. So they're trying to drive you to the physical store to take care of that last mile.
I want to ask you a little bit about kind of your prognosis for retail and what you're seeing with retail, because to me it seems like a weird time. We had a very public Bed Bath and Beyond failure, but then we've got other retail that's doing really well. You had just talked about how Target is expanding a lot of their stores to fulfill different purposes in their business model. First, I want to ask how, if at all, in the last 15 years, has your strategy shifted in terms of either what you're buying or where you're buying? What sort of shifts are you seeing in retail?
We're definitely sticking in that dense infill areas where there's no place. Biggest threat to real estate is land, right? So there's no land to build these big centers where our centers are. And so that we like to see, at least know what the playing field is before we get involved. The other things, there's uses that we just don't like anymore. So, 15 years ago, we loved Staples. I wouldn't want to touch Staples now, or an Office Depot. They're just not a use that they're getting replaced by Amazon or other things like that. Whereas TJ Maxx and the discounters like Ross, they keep growing like a weed. And then there's Top Shelf, which is a new Dollar General competitor to Five Below. We're seeing a lot more entertainment uses, a lot more fitness, a lot more medical in our centers. 15 years ago, grocery stores didn't want to have a gym in the same center as they were in. Now they want them because they see the benefits of everybody going to the gym, and then they go from the gym to their grocery store and buy food each night, like a prepared meal, which is way better for a grocery store because prepared meals have much higher margins than regular groceries. So, and it's healthier, and people are trying to get away from just eating fast food and takeout all the time.
Jake, what are some of your best strategies for when you take over a center? I want to find out about management. So is there low-hanging fruit? Are there things that you immediately implement when you take over a center that's going to either improve finances, improve tenant retention, just improve the overall feel of a center? Are there some things that you just always do, or that's the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, the first thing we usually do is change out the lights in the parking lot. We put LED lights in. They're really bright. You want to have the brightest lit parking lot because what it does is it keeps the narrative wells away at night, keeps more safety at the center, gives it a better sense of feel. Um, and then we work on the landscaping because you want to have good visibility. So if trees are like overgrown and you can't see the shops from this road, we'll trim them up, and we'll just make it a nicer sense of feel when you get to the center. And then we work on the parking lots because that's the other thing that you see when you get to the center. So you'd either do an overlay or at the very least you like do like a black top right over the top and then put new striping on. Those types of things are easy things that create a real nice sense of feel. I mean, and then more intensive things would be like changing the facade. Right now, we're doing a complete facade change at a shopping center we own in Loudoun County, which is one of the wealthiest counties in the nation. And it's being well received, and our rents are probably going from high 20s to high 30s to almost 40 just from adding a prettier facade to the center. And it's not big dollar investment to like get big returns on your and attract really top end tenants. So those are just some of the things that we do. And we look at ways we can save money on the operating expenses because the less operating expenses our tenants have to pay, the higher rent they can afford, baseline rent they can afford to pay over time.
So talk to me about tenant retention, and maybe in some of your better centers, maybe you don't want to retain tenants, maybe you want new tenants in there. But what are some of your strategies for either retaining great tenants or attracting great tenants?
So what we try to do is we try to have a good mix of local and national tenants. So nationals do a lot of advertising, so they bring a lot of people to the center. The locals create more of a flavor and a feel that's kind of makes it special and unique. So if you get a good restaurateur in combination with a good national tenant, those are great scenarios. And we work with the tenants. We try to promote what's called cross shopping. So like, we talk like if we have a dry cleaner or something else at our center, like if a person brings a $50 receipt from the grocery store, you'll give them $2 off their first time dry cleaner or whatever, or 15 or $10 or whatever it is, to get them to try that shopping center. We had funny story. We had a toy store guy that was having issues, and my partner was like, "Oh, you want to like drum up some business?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, what you do is you hire high school kids and you have them wear Dr. Seuss Cat in the Hat, and you have them walk around with a bouquet of balloons as they're leaving the shopping center with their parents, and ask them if they want a balloon. And then he's like, "Oh, you give them a balloon?" He's like, "No." Then you give them a coupon for a balloon at your store, and then the kid walks all the way to the back of the toy store and all the way to the front of the toy store. And so things like that, you just try to do things to try to get people to. There was a funny story where this Greek restaurateur used to always misspell a word, and and he'd write them on the window every day, and my partner would get so frustrated, and then the guy's like, "Well, you're right. I did misspell it, but that you're the 10th person today that came in to tell me that I misspelled the word." So like they get in the store, they smell it, they understand, they get a feel for the thing. So it's about being a salesman at the end of the day. It's not just being an order taker. It's like being a true retailer and providing the service to people and providing things. We used to have secret shoppers that go to the shopping centers, and if we had tenants that were in trouble, and figure out what was going on. And sometimes it would just be terrible employees, and we'd have to inform the owner that their employees would be on the cell phone the whole time, not helping anybody. So,
what's AmCap's kind of long-term vision and business strategy? Are you, or maybe it depends on the deal, are these legacy properties that you're holding long-term on behalf of your partners or alongside your partners, or are these quick value adds and 3 to 5 year holds?
So we have a variety. So we have quite a bit of long-term holds with some institutional partners, and then we have family office we've been investing with lately. That's more of a 5-year value add type strategy. So, and I think we're working on more value right now in this phase of the cycle. There's more of an appetite for value add type assets, and so that's kind of what we're focusing on. And we're going to continue to try to as I explained before, like add additional square footage to our site that are buildable, and work with local multifamily groups to add some of that to our centers. It's beneficial to us, and it's especially beneficial to them because it's our shopping centers are an amenity to apartment dwellers. So,
Yeah.
and so we're going to get more into that, and then we're probably going to do. We're getting a lot of inbound requests from tenants to build ground up, like groups like Trader Joe's and other groups want to for us to find them a site to build more. Because really nothing's been built. Very few shopping centers have been built since the global financial crisis. And so, you mentioned Bed Bath and Beyond before. Most of the spaces are already spoken for by TJ Maxx and Ross and Burlington Coat and a bunch of other groups like that. So, because Bed Bath had a lot of really good locations that they were in, so they're more of a victim of just bad operator. That they were a good operator that just didn't stick with the times and kind of got their lunch eaten. So.
Jake, I want to go back to one of the first things we talked about 20 minutes ago. You talked about when you first started with AmCap, you all did almost no deals from '06 to '09. And I want to ask you if you see any similarities to what we're seeing now. There's a lot of people saying, that certainly back in 2022, 12 to 18 months ago, deals were just not making sense, yet people were buying them. And a similar argument can be made for now. So, what are your thoughts on the similarities to now versus 15 years ago? And is AmCap doing deals right now?
So we're doing deals. We think it's a phenomenal time to buy. The higher interest rates are pushing cap rates much higher. So I'm looking at a deal right now that the grocer does massive sales in a really wealthy area right next to a transit stop, and it's like priced in the 7 cap rate range, and that would be a 6 cap a year ago. So our view is that back up the truck, buy as much as you can right now of good stuff, because as interest rates fall in the future, the cap rates are going to compress. Plus, our space is finally getting its due. We were kind of lumped in with malls and Class C retail, and so all retail kind of got a bad shrift. And now I think because of COVID, people saw the difference between grocery anchored retail and malls, and they understood that our stuff performed well throughout the pandemic. And coming out of it, it's probably the best leasing environment my leasing team's seen in 20 years. So the fundamentals are really great on that side. And then the capital markets are kind of in disarray, so people really can't get financing that well right now. And so to the fact that to the extent that you can buy stuff, I would say buy as much as you can, as long as it's good, well-located stuff.
I like that advice. I want to ask you about lending. Are you all getting debt on what you're buying, or are you buying with cash?
We are getting debt. It's mostly life company debt. So, but that bucket's starting to get full for them as well, because all the regional banks are on the sidelines because of SVB and First Republic and the other bank failures. And the Fed's kind of told the banks to hold off on lending, and they're dealing with their issues with office as well. And so that's made lending a much tighter market than it's been in the past. But life cos typically, historically, have liked our space a lot. So,
maybe it's lending, but what are your biggest challenges that you're facing right now? Is it deal flow? Is it financing? Is it seller expectations? What are your biggest challenges?
I think the two biggest challenges are, one, not deal flow. There seems to be a good number of good deals. Lenders, borrowing money is difficult. It seems like we have to get a different lender every time. And the second thing I would say is just like the expectations of the investors. Everybody kind of expects that they should get paid massive opportunistic returns for really safe stuff, and just that the investor expectations versus like what's reality are not lining up. It's not the global financial crisis. I'm not able to buy a super Walmart in Prestonwood, Dallas, the nicest suburb of Dallas, for a 9 cap, which is what you could do in 2009. They're just a lot more capital chasing deals than there was back then. And the fundamentals are a lot stronger right now. I mean, I would say the debt's more expensive than it was back then even. So it's an interesting time.
What advice do you have for investors, maybe not at your scale, maybe a certain podcast host or people, people like me who have some capital, we can raise some capital, we've got some partners,
Mm-hmm.
and we're interested in this, this niche of grocery anchored retail. What what suggestions, what advice do you have for someone that wants to get involved in this asset class?
Sure. I mean, if you have a limited capital base, you could start with just the little strips out front of the grocery store. Like those sometimes can be owned separately, and that would be, a couple $1 million asset that you could get good financing on, and that's becoming more popular as well. Like I know GIC just dropped a couple $1 billion on a company that specializes in these kind of small strip retails. So um, the issue has been it's hard to aggregate, and like institutional guys like us or people like ourselves we don't have the structure to go out and buy 1 or 2 million. Like our lawyers are too expensive, everybody's too expensive for us to like try to like fixed costs are too high to like go after those small assets. Whereas individual investors can buy a bunch of those, lump them together, and sell them to a bigger group for probably a tighter cap rate because they did the work of aggregating them.
what what number is too small for you? So institutional buyers like yourself, you see a certain number. At what point do you say, it's too small, it's not worth it?
Yeah, for us, we kind of like minimum is $15 million of gross asset value. Um, Preferably, we'd be up $25 million or more of gross asset value. Um, but typically, we're buying deals that are lately we've bought smaller deals, but in the past, our typical deal size is around $50 million of gross asset value.
Great. Jake, I have we're starting to wrap up here, but I have a few more questions. We can kind of go
Sure.
quickly, but I'd love to get just sort of some of your feedback on some of these quick questions. What's the best deal that you've done?
I mean, the best deal, there's a couple deals. The Clayton Lane deal was a great deal. We were able to change the zoning and make a phenomenal profit on it. Uh, I bought a really nice deal in 2010. It was a Trader Joe's that I bought for an 8.3 cap. We bought it for about 28 million and sold it for 47 million. So that was a nice deal. And we had 65% leverage on it. So, it was great. 4 or 5x on our money. And then there was a deal that we bought a long time ago that was a really weird deal where we generated like a 25% IRR on a 10-year hold. So it was phenomenal asset class. So, and that one actually, when I met with Yale, they were saying, yeah, the guy smacked the table and was like, yep, that was one of the best deals we've ever done. So that made me feel good. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're serving, like these pension funds there's people behind that, right? There's teachers, there's firefighters, there's policemen, there's the families of these, of these people that live off this and live their golden years, and they work hard their whole lives, and we do a good job. We can help protect their future and help them live their golden years in the way that they want to. So, and I put that in all my employees' heads that we're here to serve, and as long as we serve our investors well and their end clients well, we all win. So.
Yeah, my dad is a former teacher. He and my mom are living off of his pension from the Illinois state pension system, and so I can definitely relate to that. That there are real people behind your investors. So after your best deal, how about either a worse deal or a bad deal? One where you really learned a lesson, got your teeth kicked in, and why was it a bad deal?
Yeah, there's a deal speaking of Illinois, that we bought in Chicago. It had linens and things that blew out, so that was not great. And it was in a market where there was a lot of, our center was full and it was like the best center, but it had a lot of vacancy in the market. And through the GFC, I think Blackstone bought a shopping center down the street for like a really low basis, so they were able to just kind of give away rents on their center. So like the biggest lesson learned is don't buy in a market where there's a decent amount of vacancy. Like make sure the overall market vacancy is tight. And then also on top of that, make sure the nearby counties don't have lower tax rates, because somebody had started a demalled a mall and turned it into an open air center and started taking tenants from our county to their county because it was a different amount of taxes. So, like if you're next to Cook County and you're on the next county over, you're going to have a huge advantage, right? Because the tax can be much cheaper. So those are kind of the things I learned from that one.
What's your top tip for finding deals?
Talk to leasing brokers. Go after owners. We kind of created a box of what we want to invest. So we figured out what shopping centers we liked. We figured out the demographics we liked. We created a cross reference of the two, and then I would have like interns come in and they would cold call, warm call owners of these centers, and I'm like, look, they're not going to pick up the phone and say, thank God you call them. I want to sell you my shopping center, but you never know. So like there was a guy that we dealt with in Charlotte, had a nice shopping center, and he was 89. He's not selling. He was 90. Call back every year. 91. I'm still not a seller. Finally at 93, decided he was going to estate plan and sell a shopping center. People get divorced. I had a guy once who married his third wife in Minnesota, and she didn't like the cold, so he had to move to California. So he had to sell his shopping centers. So there's just different reasons that people sell. So if you just stay in their consciousness, kind of like eventually they'll capitulate and sell. Things will change and they'll want to sell all of a sudden. There's a really good story about, which is a little bit related, the guy that owns Quadratics, the Utah-based like quant firm. He used to sneak into the Utah games, and then he called, and then he wanted to buy the Utah Jazz, and he called on the owners, and then during the pandemic, they decided they were sellers, even though they said they were never going to be sellers. And he went from sneaking into Utah Jazz games. Now he's the owner of the Utah Jazz. So only in America can you hear that story. So,
do you find that most of your deals are coming from reaching out to owners directly, or are you establishing relationships with brokers, or where do the majority of your deals come from?
I think the majority come through brokers, and we just have a good reputation of being a good closer and being in the industry for a long time. We do get direct inbound from other owners. We do reach out to other owners in markets that we like. So it just depends. So, but lately, brokers have been the big driver of trying to get deals done. So. And I think owners don't want to take things to market right now, but they will like entertain off-market offers because they don't want to taint the deal. If they do take it to market down the road, they don't feel like now's a good time to sell. But if they got the number they wanted, they would be sellers. So,
Jake, what's your top tip for raising capital or working with high net worth individuals, high net worth organizations?
Demonstrating a track record. Having a live deal, people like respond to deals. That's how we've gotten a lot of our major institutional investors. Was one of them was that we bought a center where the pension fund, head of the pension fund, ate his pizza. The shop center we just bought was where he went home from work and got pizza every day. So he liked that, and that made him have a higher view of us. So showing live deals with people, if they can. Something they can underwrite, and then look at how you think about it, and if it's something that you have tied up or have ability to get to, that's the most attractive to investors. And then demonstrating a track record that you know what you're doing.
Great. Well, Jake, this has been awesome. I learned a ton. I've got 2 full pages of notes that I've been taking over here. I sincerely appreciate you taking time out, sharing your time, sharing your wisdom and expertise, some of your lessons learned. If a listener wants to connect with you, wants to learn more about AmCap, where would you like to send people?
And just go to www.amcap.com. You can get my contact information there, and reach out to me. You can, if you have a deal you want to send us, you can reach out to my head of acquisitions, Dirk, or my investor. Or if you want to invest, there's my head of investor relations, Alice Catalano. So there's plenty of ways you can get a hold of us. Or if your tenant want to lease space, you can reach out to our leasing folks. So happy to help anybody that comes.
I'd encourage anyone to, I would encourage anyone to check out AmCap's website. I really like your website for a couple reasons. You're really easy to get a hold of. Number one. Number two, I love that you've got your portfolio up there. So it
Hmm.
it goes into quite a bit of detail about what the asset is, the location, what sort of retailers are there. So I love that just as an interested investor. And your buy box is right there. It says exactly right there what kind of locations you like, what kind of assets you like, and so I think that's just really helpful. It's not a secret what you guys are looking for, and it's not a secret of how to get a hold of you. So great website, listeners. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. If you want to reach out to either one of us, feel free to connect. We would love to chat with you. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. Until next time, take care.
Thank you.